Hello, everybody. Nope, I did not turn on all the ones that I was supposed to. There we go. They are live now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Community Cleric. How is everybody doing tonight? Rachel, thank you so much for being with me. I am so excited. Okay, so Rachel, you are an owner co-owner situation of Perception Games in Tennessee, and I had no, she shouldn't be muted. Somebody's saying you're muted. Will you talk for me really quick? Ah, this is my mod is so good. This happened to me 2 weeks ago too, because I had it switched to the wrong setting. Okay, try talking now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, it is moving.
Perfect.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Singles. Best mod ever. You and the chat command isn't working. My mod is earning her big bucks
That's okay.
tonight, baby.
In the meantime,
Oh yeah, you get the pup. Let me fix the thing. Ay, 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 ay.
who's my baby?
Yes. This is Brandy, one of 5 pups, right?
Yes.
Oh.
Wendy.
We love. All right. Rachel, you run a not just like a friendly local game store. Like there is a whole other layer to this. So why don't you start by telling me, where did you get the idea for this, and like what were the steps to bring it to fruition, and tell everybody what it is.
Sure. So I am one of 5 partners planning on opening a friendly local game store called Perception Games in Covington, Tennessee. So, and we all have been friends for years now. We've played together. We love TTRPG. We're really into 5e at the moment. But our kind of concept, our thought was, well, we love gaming. We love being able to go to a store and game. It gives it more consistency. We love the idea of paid DMs to make sure that you've got a consistent game every week. We feel like it brings more creativity and more, consistency to the games. But we're all used to gaming in comic book shops that are really kind of retail forward, and then the games are, in the back room or at a table in the middle, which is great. And I love that that's out there to bring people into the community. But we've never really seen anything that puts the gaming up front, that says we are a gaming store, not a retail store, not a comic book store. We're a gaming store, and we're here to provide TTRPG entertainment. So that's really what we're after. We are not planning on having the concept of kind of retail at the store. Our concept is, we're like a movie theater. Come spend 4 hours with us and play in your own interactive adventure game. Instead of going to a movie theater and spending 2 hours watching one, you can be a part of one for 4 hours a week. So that's really kind of where the concept started. And then that just developed into, well, if we're going to be gaming first, what do we want our space to look like? So that led us to, let's paint the rooms to look like certain aspects of fantasy gameplay. Let's make the entry to the store look like a castle. Let's turn what would be kind of a concession area into an actual tavern. And, have shiplapped walls and, the battle axe of lore that was brought to the tavern owner several years ago up on the wall in a place of honor, things like that. So, because what we all love about the game is that it really does let you kind of be someone else for a few hours.
Right.
And the more that you can kind of see yourself in that world, we just think that makes the experience all the better.
I love that you guys get to live out your nerd fantasies, because that is something that we have talked about a lot on this show. So I think that's tremendous. Are you guys from Covington, and so you're opening up in your own town, or did you guys like pick Covington because it's a good area for this?
Sure. So kind of both. So we all live near Covington, kind of around Covington. I'm in Dyersburg, which is about an hour north. Um, two of the partners, Jay and Misty, are in Ripley, which is just like 15 minutes outside of Covington. So it's kind of the same general community.
Right.
Matt is also in Dyersburg with me, and Zach, our fifth partner, is in Ripley as well. So we're between Dyersburg and Ripley. And Covington is part of kind of our West Tennessee community.
Right.
But it's also, Covington has done a lot, the Chamber of Commerce and just the Covington community in general has done a lot to open up the town to commerce and activities and all kinds of things. They did a great renovation of their square not too long ago, a few years ago, and brought in an ice cream shop and taco stand and bakeries, and there's an old pizza place that's been there for years that's beloved and that now gets way more attention because the square is now, you know,
vibrant.
Unfortunately, right. And unfortunately, in a lot of kind of old town America now, there are these beautiful town squares that are filled with lawyers' offices and doctors' offices and courthouse, you know, businesses that don't really bring people to the center of town anymore.
Right.
And Covington has done a great job of reviving the center of town is the center of the town, the center of the community.
Right.
And so we're really excited to kind of just slide right in there and be another pillar of kind of the center of the community there in Covington.
I'm so excited to hear that. That's so cool. Like in my little town of 16,000, so like rural Nova Scotia, the game store is literally across the street from the 2-room cinema. And you know, which is next to the tailors that have been there since like the 1920s and next to the rug hookers who, that's how you make rugs. They're called hookers. Twitch, don't demonetize me. You know, and then that's down the street from like the place that they flood every winter and turn into the ice skating rink. So, you know, like I totally get that revitalization. I know my channel mod Singlish, shout out to you. Thank you for being so amazing every night, but especially tonight. When I lived 10 minutes from her, we lived in a town that was just doing amazing revitalization to their downtown too. So it's good to see, like, as big shopping malls, it's not good to see big shopping malls close down. I hate seeing jobs go away, but towns are like making great decisions for their people. So, so I love that. And like bringing people back into small towns and making them vibrant. I'm thrilled with that. And I'm super thrilled you guys get to be a part of that. My husband was like, who are you talking to tonight? And I was like, she's living my dream job. Okay. I've talked about like owning a themed, like come for the weekend, like D&D in a castle. And there's several places that have started doing it. Like that would be my dream.
You're welcome anytime, Sarah. Once we get over.
Like you're a good few days drive for me, but you better believe I am coming down. Absolutely. I'm going to do that. I would love that. You're like right in the middle of actually from me and one of my super best friends, Zulmaine, people know Jazz, who I've had a couple of weeks ago. You're like the midpoint. So maybe we'll have to come meet.
I was going to say, just meet up right there. It's a perfect opportunity.
We'll have to come meet. So how did you become a nerd? Did you become a nerd for the job, or you've been a nerd before that?
So I claim nerddom from when I was growing up. Okay. So very, very young, I was that geeky girl that was the goody two shoes, that was, you know, always had her nose in a book. I used to read voraciously. And I mean,
it's a common theme. We talk about it week after week after week on this show. Yep.
Harry Potter, the Chronicles of Narnia. Right. I mean, any book that I could get my hands on, I was knee deep into. And I will say, and I will say proudly, I was one of those kids that would walk down the hallway from class to class reading. So like I knew my path to classes well enough that I could have my nose in a book between classes.
I love it.
So, and then as I grew up, as I got in high school and into college, music and theater has always been big for me.
Yeah.
So I got into theater a little bit in high school. I was in choirs all the way through high school into college, and then in college I was majoring in engineering. So
No.
I was
Okay.
all around
I love it.
nerds all
I
the
love
time,
it.
all the time. So I'm an engineer by trade. Um, but I didn't find gaming. I was never a big video gamer.
Right.
I was never a big, tabletop gamer or anything like that
Right.
until I moved to Tennessee.
Okay.
And I had to move to Tennessee for work. Couldn't meet a lot of people. We're very rural
Sure.
West Tennessee. So I was having trouble kind of finding good friends, things like that. And somehow, and I want to say that it was my friend that we were talking about pre-show in Seattle that recommended Critical Role. And I started watching Critical Role, and like literally from the first session that I watched, I was like, what is this thing and why have I never heard of it?
Yeah.
This is amazing. This seems like everything that I love,
Yes.
kind of all in one thing.
Yes.
Where has this been?
Yes.
So and that just led to me looking for where can I do this here? There has to be somewhere close that I can do this.
Yes.
And I eventually found the community that I now play games with week in, week out.
That's so awesome.
Got to play my first game, sat down at the table with my 5e book already bought, my character already built out, ready to go.
So cool.
And it was, ever since that first day of sitting at a table and playing, TTRPG has been a huge part of my life. So
I think that's so cool. I could tear up over it. No, I have like moisturizer in my eye. I'm at that age now where I'm putting on moisturizer and it is dripping all over. I think there is absolutely a pipeline for people who they weren't nerdy enough to be into D&D in high school, but they were theater kids watching Critical Role and watching actors get to do this thing where it's kind of like improv, but not total free-base improv. There are rules, because super free-base improv stresses me out. But like there are rules behind it, and it brings in the fantasy element that we all grew up loving. Yeah, I think somebody could, there's a scientist that could do that. I did not know you were an engineer. I just, I told you pre-stream, I'm a teacher. That is still true. I do still teach middle school for a small school out in British Columbia that is only online. But I recently just left my main classroom job to go work for a national engineering nonprofit. And I do their marketing and support teachers who are trying to use engineering in the classroom. So
that is really cool.
We will have to connect about some of that. I'm going to pick your brain about some stuff later on.
No, excellent.
I love that. So you obviously play D&D. You mentioned having a 5th edition rulebook. What other games do you play?
So the one that I would say I have officially played is Pathfinder. We did a little bit of Pathfinder when I was first starting.
Right.
And I would say one of my favorite characters that I've ever played was from that game.
Right. And what was it? Tell us the details.
She was a gnome bard. And I joined that table after it had been running for several sessions for months, I think. So they were like level, I want to say 8 or 9 when I joined. And the party, and the DM said, the party is very chaotic. The party is like borderline neutral, maybe kind of turning into evil.
Sure.
And I was like, okay, well, let me try to build a character that will fit in with that. Then I don't want to go in being lawful good if that's where the party's at.
Right.
So I built her to be neutral, like true neutral.
Yes. And
as soon as I joined the table, things started happening in game that started pulling characters kind of back more neutral.
Okay.
So that gave me the opportunity as a new person to play a little bit more good.
Right.
And be a little bit more kind of what I would have traditionally built.
Right.
And by the end of the table, my alignment, if I had rewritten it, would have been lawful good.
That's so cool.
And it was just really cool to see the shift in characters. But I sang at the table.
I love it.
I got to do spells to boost the party. I am at heart a support player.
Sure.
I would much rather
100%.
sit at the back of the field and cast things to help other people.
Yes.
Or boost people up than do anything. Even when I build barbarians and fighters, they're protector fighters.
Right.
Like they're tanks that can take damage.
Right.
I always take the protection feats. Like that's who I am. So that's the Pathfinder. On that table also, because the DM had crazy creative ideas.
Yes.
He built that table to be a Pathfinder World of Darkness table.
Okay.
There was kind of an alternate universe thing where sometimes on the table we were playing in Pathfinder as those characters, and
Awesome.
sometimes we were playing in the World of Darkness world as a different character that had a like tether to this character in
Oh,
this other world.
that is
It was
cool.
so fascinating. So I have also played a little bit in World of Darkness, but
Yeah.
when I joined the table, we played a lot more on the Pathfinder side than we did on the World of Darkness side. But I did get a little bit of that experience, and that was cool too.
That is very, very cool. I know on Vancouver by Night, which is the channel where I host my Fandolin by Night show, they're known for, obviously, their Vancouver by Night. They're known for their World of Darkness stuff, but they have been experimenting with them playing as their like vampire characters playing D&D. So there's the storyteller for the vampire game, but one of the characters is the DM for the D&D game that they're all playing. It is such a cool idea. And I hope Steve is in the chat because he's going to tell me who it is that does it. I think it's Kat, but I don't want to be wrong. But she's going to go do it at a convention this year. She's going to go run it for people. So yeah, that's super
really
exciting.
Neat.
I love that idea. So it is Kat. Thank you. Yes, and yes for me for knowing. Hey, Joe and Steve, thanks for joining us. Okay, it's time to bring out the dice. What are your favorite dice, and what are your dice superstition?
Okay, so I'm going to show you my absolute favorite set of dice first. So this is a set that my husband bought for me when I turned 30, because I was super, super excited about turning 30, and he was like, well, then you need special dice.
Yep.
So I play with those. These are character dice. So leading into dice superstition,
sure.
I have character dice and I have DM dice.
Okay.
So I have a special bag of dice that are only my DM dice. I never play with a character with those. Those are only for DM. I also probably picked this habit up from Laura from Critical Role, but I roll my dice before I play with them. All of my player dice, they have to roll to prove that they're going to roll well that day. So I roll all of my D20s. I line them all up, and whichever ones roll the highest get to play that day. Now, sometimes I will mix it up, and if I know I haven't played with a set in a while, I'll give it some love. But traditionally, I always roll before I play.
Right.
I'm not crazy about other people touching my dice, but if if they ask, that's fine. But somebody coming over just kind of grabbing handfuls of my dice gets me a little skeeved out.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
And I always ask before I touch somebody else's dice, because I know I'm crazy like that, like literally insane.
Yes.
So I always ask before I touch somebody else's dice.
But I love it. And do you have to do your dice have to be facing the 20 up or the one up? Are you that level of specific about it?
I used to be. I'm not that bad about it anymore. And I think it's just, time, and I'm so busy that sometimes I'm screaming writing at tables before they start. So I don't really have time to do my full setup. But when I was playing years ago, it would be to the point where I would pick which dice we're going to play that day by rolling the D20s, seeing which ones were going to roll well. And then I would set all of my dice up, all of them facing up on the highest number.
Right.
to encourage them to roll that when I actually roll them.
Of course. So I love that. And I love that your husband got you dice. Yep. My husband enables me to just buy dice. Actually, that's not true. And he's going to yell. I'm going to hear him yelling from the front room in about 6 seconds when the stream catches up, because that's not true. He would never stop me from buying dice if I really wanted to. But yes, I have a problem. That's for sure. You mentioned that you have DM dice, which means you are a DM. Why do you prefer to DM? Do you prefer to play?
I love both. And I don't think that I would pick one. I don't think that I would be satisfied if I couldn't DM. I really love telling the story. In fact, we're in the last act, I would say, the last act of my um, almost 3-year campaign that I've been running.
Yes.
And I'm so excited for them to get to the final bit of the story and them to finally face the big bad guy and all of that. But I'm starting to have like withdrawals because I'm like, but it's the end, but it's the end of the
Yes.
story.
Yes.
But I'm starting to get ideas for my next campaign, and that will encourage me to, it's okay that this one's ending because
Right.
the next one will pick right back up. So I do really love DMing, but I also really enjoy getting to play out a story from a personal perspective
Right.
of, being part of somebody else's story and playing through that. So I told you about my bard that I think is my favorite character that I've played so far, but my favorite character that I'm playing right now is a fighter named Christine, but she goes by Chris. And we're level 15 or 16 on that table. And I joined that table a little bit late as well. So I fit Chris into the party as well. And it's a funny story with her because I really didn't like playing the fighter at first. It didn't feel like my play style. I didn't feel
Yes.
useful. I
Right.
couldn't stand toe to toe with any of the other fighters in the party.
Right.
And so that, the barbarian and the paladin could
Right.
kick my ass. So I was
Sure.
like, I don't feel useful. And it took kind of gaining a few more levels and figuring out that her role was not to kick ass. Her role was
Right.
not to deal a lot of damage. I am a true tank. I have a 24 AC. I can deal a little bit of damage a little bit at a time, but I have Sentinel, I have Shield Master. My goal, my whole role in the party is go pick a bad guy, stand there in front of it,
Right.
and just ping it a little by little and not let it pass me until the barbarian and the paladin can come and finish it off.
Right. I
So
love those stories of like finding out where you fit with each character and how to like maximize those characters.
yep.
And how to, and I like, again, coming from that theater background, figuring it out for myself and then integrating as a player of like, I need to explain through the character's eyes why this character has this practice. And so in our family game, like in our Saturday night home game, our I say he's my nephew. He's not technically my nephew, but I've changed his diaper, so he's kind of my nephew. You know that kind of situation.
Oh yeah.
He's 20 now, so I've known him for a while, but he plays with us, or he's maybe 18 now. Actually, I shouldn't say he's 20. His sister is 20, and he he is so good at like finding those little moments. He plays a fighter, and what he's been doing is anytime they meet a new group of NPCs, they go to a new town, they're on a ship, whatever, he will run fighting workshops and like actually like I'm going to take a couple days to teach the town guard how to defend better or whatever.
That is so
Oh
cool.
man, it's so good. It's so good. I love it. And you're right. So Steve in chat, Vancouver by Night in chat just said strategy is important and many groups and players don't do that in D&D. I love that. What are some ways that as a DM you prompt or support or tease out or whatever it takes to like
Yep.
get your players to have more of those experiential moments as their characters?
So I am very much a storytelling DM. I know that I know that there are several different kind of play styles in D&D specifically, but I'm sure that's true for many TTRPGs, where some people really enjoy dungeon crawl, some people really enjoy role play.
Right.
I told all of my players from the get-go, this will be a role-playing table.
Right.
So when I was kind of recruiting players for the table, I just put it out front.
Yeah.
I am looking for people that want to role play. We may go several sessions without combat, and that's like not that there won't be a challenge in the session or there won't be world building or whatever, but you might not have a combat for several sessions.
Right.
So if you're good with that, I would love to have you on the table.
Yeah.
And that I think really encouraged my players to, and I required a backstory. I said, it doesn't have to be much.
Right.
It doesn't have to be, don't give me 20 pages, but even if it's just one paragraph about where you're from and are your parents alive and why are you in the capital city? Because if you're not from here, you traveled here for some reason.
Yeah, that's right.
So just to get them thinking about who their character really is.
Right.
And then honestly, that really helped set the stage for having a table of players that role plays, that plays a character and not just rolling dice and kind of, making decisions in combat.
Right.
The strategy piece, like kind of having them work as a team, took a while because I had a table full of all men, first of all. So I had a table full of men who most of them built very broody characters. Do you know what I mean? Like that character that has the tragic backstory, that doesn't really get along with people very well.
Right.
I think the highest charisma on my table when it started was the bard. And that's right. I did start with one woman. She had to leave the table early on, unfortunately, but she had an 18. She left the table pretty quick. And I think at that point, the highest charisma on the table was like an 11.
Wow.
So,
okay.
So they were not a charismatic party.
Right.
And they played into those characters, which is what I wanted.
Yeah.
But that meant that it took me as a DM to set them challenges that forced them to work together and to make partnerships with each other.
That's right.
And things like that. So that it just kind of little by little took, putting them in situations where, okay, your character has a decision to make. You can either be an ass and kind of put yourself in a position where you probably have to leave the party, which if that's how it goes, that's how it goes, and we'll build a new character. Or be a little vulnerable and talk to your party. And
I love
it
that.
Took several of those for them to work as a team.
I really love it. First off, because it sounds like you had a session 0 and it sounds like you were very clear on your needs. And that's a big thing that I always tell DMs whenever there's like a Twitter thread of like, hey, veteran DMs, what do you think is the most important advice for a new DM? For me, it's always, you are also a player at the table. You have a right to make your needs known, and you have a right to be, if you're into collaborative storytelling, because some people are like all about the min-max and this is the situation, and that's fine. Like, be that DM, because I definitely know players who need that DM. That's not me. But for me, I am a player at the table. I have to be very honest with my players. So for instance, on Sunday, we are trying to get to the end of season 1 of Phandalin by Night by like a very specific date. And they know where they need to get to kind of bring things to a successful like narrative close, but also a little bit of a cliffhanger. But in this episode or in this session, they show up at this town that's not really, I was like ahead of Radiant Citadel by like a 24-hour thing, because basically they walked into the Radiant Citadel, and I'm so excited for that book. Oh my God, I'm so excited for that book. But at the end, after we turned off the stream, I told the players, hey, look, I'm not anticipating you guys even spending half of next episode. Sorry, spoilers for those of you who are going to watch next week. I'm not expecting you guys to even spend half of the episode there. I'm not throwing in a new narrative bone for you. You guys needed a place to stay. This is where you showed up to. I would like you guys to pack it up. There's not a mystery to uncover here. You can explore it at a later date. I'm just letting you know that like, I'm prepared for us to move on. Because you got to walk that line. Like, I don't want to railroad my players, but I do need to be honest with them. I have a limited amount of time. This is what I'm prepared for. And also, I'm in the story too. I'm telling the story with you guys, and this is the story I would like to tell with my characters that I'm bringing. So I like that. So what advice would you give to a new DM?
So I would definitely say, it kind of along the same lines of what you were saying, set rules for the table. Is my biggest thing. So I totally agree with you. You're a player. You should have fun. You should work with your players on what works best for both of you, for both the player and the DM. But secondary to that, set rules for the table. So I had, and those could be like, I'm not saying, you have to keep it strict, school teacher style, or, we're not in a Catholic school here, but establish with the players, look, I need you to be engaged for us all to have fun and for us all to move the story along. So no phones at the table.
Right.
If that's a rule that you want to make. Or like I have a list of 10 rules that I will probably send you after this.
I would love this.
That are kind of in D&D kind of style language, but it's stuff like don't look behind the DM screen. You know, the DM screen's not just there so that I can like roll a crit when I really didn't. The DM like this is so that I can fudge rolls in your favor.
That's right.
And you know, so don't look behind the DM screen. And I think I threw a joke in there, you know, you wouldn't look in a woman's purse. That treat the DM screen like a woman's purse. You don't look behind. And there's some other stuff like, you know, pay attention to the table or to what's going on in the game, even if you're not necessarily the center. No one likes to be surprised by a pit fiend. You know, trust me on that. So, you know, little things like that are, I think are important, are to establish from the beginning, what do we all want to get out of this experience, and how can we best do that together?
And it sounds like you play face to face, which with your table, which is, gosh, such a luxury that I haven't had. Like I left the province where I had been playing face to face with my table. I bailed on them all, and thankfully they followed me online. Thank goodness. But you know, do you use any digital tools, or are you guys like all terrain tiles and like you guys have the setup?
Sure. So we being my table, I have a few players that use D&D Beyond. So and some of them roll on D&D Beyond, some of them use D&D Beyond for their character sheet but still roll physical dice. I am still very not techie.
Sure.
I am paper and pencil. I have a giant whiteboard that I use to keep stats for the monsters.
I love it.
We use tiles and markers to draw out the maps. We still have the physical character miniatures.
Yes.
When one thing that I'm excited about with the store is when we move into that space, there's going to be a lot, we plan to build in a lot of opportunity for that flexibility. So that you can still use physical things, paper and pencil, if you want to, but there's also an option for digital. And that's so that one of the things we'd like to offer is online play with our paid DMs. So if you want to play in our immersive space with our cosplay DMs, you know, all of that, you have that opportunity, even if you don't live in our area, even if you're not in West Tennessee. So that's one thing that I'm excited to get more into. I just started trying to use D&D Beyond a little bit. I built a character on there and actually rolled for the first time and all of that. So I'm getting more familiar, but we plan to again, kind of have both, have the ability to build digital maps for the online games so that everybody can interact, and still have the physical tools in the immersive rooms so that the people that are physically in the space have that same immersive experience as well.
I love that. And I want to go back to something that you said, which is don't look behind the DM screen because of fudging dice. So I want to pick up on this for a second, because you saying that made a connection in my brain to something that I've been saying for a couple of weeks, which is, and I know other people have said it longer. Don't at me in the chat. I have been saying it for a couple of weeks. The dice are the other person in the game that nobody talks about. Like the dice tell the story as much as any of the living, breathing creatures around the table. And as a DM, my job is to manage the table so that everybody gets a satisfying experience. That means sometimes I'm going to manage the dice. And especially my dice, because my dice are vindictive, capricious, will-o'-the-wisp bitches at times. And I will manage my dice effectively. So I don't think I've ever faked a crit on a player. I have absolutely stopped some crits on players. And one of my players says, can confirm. Two of my players are agreeing with this now. That's great, guys. But yes, like part of my job is to make sure that everybody's having like this good narrative story, and the dice are going to be subject to my whim. So I try to be, I try to let them tell the story, but it's not the only thing. And I'm also, and I'm upfront with people, like you said, have those rules at the beginning, tell people at the beginning, have that session 0 and explain what people can expect, try to get on the same page, have communication. When you come to me as a DM, you're not getting a min-max strict. I know people who thrive in that environment, which is the other thing we say on this show every single week after week. Find a table you love being at.
Exactly.
Even if you're like, I'm having an okay time, that's not good enough. Find a table you love being at, and it doesn't have to be a forever table. You can love this arc and then go find another table with a different arc that you also love, because like everybody at the table deserves for those 4 hours, and then like double that for DMs, right? I don't know what your DM prep like, but my DM prep, even though I use modules, is still an hour for every hour that I'm spending at the table. Oh, yeah. Find a table that you love. Those are some top tips. I love this. Can you talk to me about cosplay? Because I have a picture of you with some great ears and a staff, and I want to hear about it.
So I have only unfortunately gotten the opportunity to cosplay very infrequently.
Okay.
But I have the picture that I sent you. Yes. I have that handmade armor in my closet. I got it on Etsy from a costume maker who handmade that armor. And so I have that in my closet for a character I was actually cosplaying a ranger I was playing at the time.
So cool.
who gave no fucks about anybody. Like she had super low charisma. She was from the forest. Awesome. Like she didn't care about people. Yes. But she met up with this group of people that needed help. And so she was like, all right, cool. I'll be with y'all for a little while then.
Right.
But so I love cosplaying as her. I have also recently put a cosplay together, really simple, for an NPC from my current table, named Kayla, who the party literally met when they were like 4th level, and they're 20 now. So her name is Kayla, and she was the librarian at the main library in the capital city. That's how they met her, is they thought she was just the librarian behind the desk. Well, it turns out that's just what she loves to do. She loves to be there and kind of be the librarian, but she's like one of the top wizards in like the world.
Awesome.
So she's their best friend, and a few sessions ago married one of my players.
What?
She started a romance with the bard at the table, whose name's Kaylin. And so Kaylin proposed to Kayla, and the two of them got married not too long ago on the table. So that was
Did you guys do like a big thing? Did everybody get dressed up for that night? And like,
no, unfortunately, but we knew ahead of time that it was happening. Right. So some of the players planned like things to do during the ceremony and the wedding and aftermath. And we had some comedic things with that night, their wedding night. So that was pretty fun. But
I love that.
So that's another cosplay I'm working on. And then I have a paladin cosplay that I want to put together. That's kind of the next thing that I want to do. Okay. For a paladin that I played for too brief a time. But I really want to be able to cosplay as that character. And I still have it on my list that I'd love to cosplay as my bard gnome at some point. Kat, I think, really needs a cosplay. And I'm just super excited about it because she had pinkish skin and green hair.
Right.
So I'm pumped to try to pull that off.
I'm so stoked. I'm so stoked to continue to see those photos. You're going to need your own Twitter account so that like you can be posting all that stuff.
Just cosplay.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And that has prompted me to write down on my questions list. I'm going to ask every person from now on after you, if they've ever been a DM, what is an NPC that everybody else should use in their homebrew? So there you go. Kayla the Librarian Wizard.
Kayla the Librarian Wizard.
For everyone out there. What are, you talked a little bit about World of Darkness. Mm-hmm. Were you playing Vampire the Masquerade, or were you guys playing like Changeling or the werewolf thing?
So the short answer is I am honestly not sure. Okay. I know the source book that I was given was not Vampire.
Okay.
It was something different.
Okay.
And I can tell you that my character was a human who ended up getting into some like witch stuff. Basically, she was an occultist.
Okay.
So she could kind of brew these potions that could do different things. So and like I said, that's probably the one that I had the least experience with.
Right.
But I really liked the D10 system. When we were playing that, I thought that was a cool, like, it very different from D&D with the 20 system, but that was an interesting kind of way to see your fate, was the D10 system. I like that.
Yes.
That difference. Yeah. The mechanics were good.
Yes. I've been kind of getting ready to, I've been asked to DM a Powered by the Apocalypse system, on one of my future guest channels. And I've never played it. It's a D6 system. And so, I'm trying to like figure, but the DM never rolls. I'm like, that's more than half the fun for me. So, we're going to play a homebrew version of this where I do get to roll, even if it's just like for the weather or something. Yeah, I am not playing a 3-hour game without rolling every week. That's not my jam. Okay. So, tell me, who are, some of you already mentioned Critical Role. And I love that. What are some of the other, like, in your local area, players that you see doing something that is great, that everybody should know about?
Sure. So I'm going to shout out one of my good friends. His name is Will, and he's at Rough and Scruff on Twitter.
Seamless will get that for us.
And he is, yes. And he is a great DM.
Awesome.
And I'm actually playing on one of his tables right now. And he's done something really cool with his DM style that I haven't seen before, and that I'm really enjoying as a player, where there's a couple of different things. So he, first of all, he lets the table help him world build. So, awesome. which I do a little bit, if they walk into a random shop, then there's now a random shop in the town. Right. But he goes so far as to say, like, if we say, well, hey, I'm looking for a bakery. This is a real example. I'm looking for a bakery. One of the players on the table is a fighter, but her background, her family, like, bakes. And so her whole reason for being in the capital city was she was trying to make connections for her aunt to sell her buns. Right. So she was looking for a bakery.
Right.
So he says, okay, well then here's the bakery. You find the bakery. What's it called? And we're like, what do you mean? What's it called? And he's like, do you guys name it? I don't have a bakery in my city yet. Name the bakery. So we asked a couple of questions. We were like, well, is there a proprietor? Like, do we know this, like, who the proprietor is, whatever? And he was like, well, it's run by a guy named Brendan. And so somebody at the table shouted out, well, then we should call it Brendan's Hot Buns. And we were like, perfect. Yep. That's it. So, and then Will added in, playing off of that the uniform for the workers at Brendan's Hot Buns are like darker brown, kind of khaki pants.
Yeah.
With yellow pockets on the buns.
I love it.
And it's perfect.
I love that.
So he does awesome things like that. And then his experience system, I think he borrowed from someone else. I don't think this is completely original, but he uses an experience system where at the end of each night, we talk about, like, did we complete a long and perilous journey? Did we use a skill or a bond in an interesting way to solve a problem? Did we meet a short-term goal, a personal short-term goal?
Right.
And all of that kind of gets added together for the experience. And I haven't been on a table that did anything like that before. It was always just get to the end and what monsters did you fight? Okay, you get this much XP.
Does he ask you guys that and you guys decide XP together, or does he, like, keep a running checklist?
So we do it all together at the end. And sometimes he'll say, well, y'all definitely did that. And y'all definitely did that.
Yeah.
But sometimes he'll be like, did anybody use a skill in an interesting way? What do we think?
Right.
And people will shout out ideas, and he'll go, well, that's a pretty standard use of that spell, or that's a pretty standard use of
Right.
that skill. And then somebody will say, well, what about when Rachel did this? And he'll go, oh no, that is very unique. Let's count that.
I love that because that is a great way at the end of a night when otherwise players are like mentally checking out and getting ready to go back to real life, keeps them in for a little bit longer, makes them responsible for their next set of play of,
Yep.
oh, I'm gonna do something innovative. Like he's incentivized that.
Yep.
That is really, really, really a good idea. I'm a milestone. I don't like tracking the stuffs. So
Yep.
I'm a milestone. However, it's bitten me though recently because one of my players was like, at the end of what they thought was like a big boss battle, they were like,
Mhm.
so we all level up? And I was like, no. And they were like, oh no, something worse is coming. And I was like, oh, no, that's gonna bite me. All right, all right. But also, like, I will level players up independently of each other if they reach like a peak of their story. So one of my players ended up with like Viessa, the 13-year-old girl who plays Viessa in our home campaign, who's
Awesome.
wonderful. And then we see the level 30 plus adventure in my Sunday game because my
Mm,
what happens in my Saturday home game affects my Sunday stream game,
nice.
which is like just a nice little Easter egg for my players. Um,
Yeah.
and Viessa is, I think, consistently a level ahead of everybody else because she had this like paladin arc thing happen for her.
Gotcha.
So I love that, and I love hearing those stories because Mike, who's in chat as Canadian Captain America, and I were just talking about. We're both DMs. We were just talking about XP and milestone and like what are some new ways to consider that. So thank you for
Yep.
sharing that. I'm clipping
Oh yeah.
that. Um,
Oh yeah. It's great. And I
my
mean, it gave us an opportunity. So I was struggling coming up with short-term goals at
yeah,
first because I'm a cleric, and
right.
I was like, well, I don't really know. Like her goal right now is really to like do the story, and I feel like that
Yes.
doesn't count as a personal short-term goal.
Yeah.
So I was struggling at coming up with that, and then we met an NPC named Airwalker, and my character mother just like latched onto that, and
Yes.
I realized, well, wait, one of my personal short-term goals is make a friend of Airwalker, like
Oh,
form a substantial friendship with Airwalker.
yeah.
Like, does that count? And he was like, sure. Like, we'll have to figure out
Awesome.
when you've done that, but yeah, if that's a short-term goal of mother's, that's a short-term goal.
I
So
okay, you brought up the magic word which is cleric because my goal is to stream every subclass because I will say it here and people don't even bother fighting with me about it. Clerics are the best class in D&D. They can do everything. You if you want to be a tank, you can be a tank. If you want to be a buff, you can be a buff. If you want to be just a healer, you can do that. Like if you want to just solo play, cleric is the class for you. I'm in love with the cleric class. What subclass of cleric is your character right now?
So I am a life cleric. So I am a true
Love it.
straight healer.
Oh,
And that was my goal. Is I'd
yes.
never played a cleric before.
Yes.
I wanted to play cleric on a couple of tables at different points, but I was
Yes.
like the fifth or sixth person to decide what they wanted to play. So there
Yes.
was already a cleric. So so on this table, it's only there was only six people that play on it.
Yeah.
So, and I jumped in first and was like, I'm playing a cleric. No one else is playing a
I love
cleric.
it.
I'm playing cleric this time. And I had this weird idea in my head to build a cleric, a life cleric
Yeah.
that had big Southern mama energy.
I love it.
So
Oh my gosh.
she's a
Yeah.
Loxodon. So she's huge.
Yes.
And when I read through the Loxodon thing, they kind of have names that other people can pronounce that are more
Right.
kind of their job or like what they do, what they are.
Right.
And so I was like, well, then she's gonna call herself mother because that's how she views herself.
Right.
She's got a husband and two kids at home, like
Right.
she's mother. So that's her name. And she does things like she casts guidance by like licking her finger and getting a smudge off your face, and so it's all kinds of stuff like that. But she's been so much fun to play.
I tell you, so my life cleric, her name is Corden. Southern Mama energy. She carries a bat, but she's the opposite. She's a halfling. Because I am notorious for rolling awful, and I needed that built-in like reroll a ones situation. Also because hobbits. She has a bag of colding that has my DM gave it to me special. Shout out to Ray. That she can reach in because her goddess is Astana, who is the goddess of the harvest. Like food is how she shows people she loves them. Her spiritual weapon is a giant turkey leg. And her bag of colding is Thanksgiving themed. So she can reach in and grab out she had to pick 5 foods that she could pull out. Turkey, cornbread, cranberry sauce or cranberry jelly, like not even sauce, jelly, like from the can,
like out of the can.
Yes, you know what I'm talking about, like with the dints and everything. Like that traditional Southern sweet tea is one of the things that she can do. Like it is the only Hero Forge of all the Hero Forge things that I've made. It's the only one I've actually gotten printed ever. Her name is Corden, and she will always be like the first. Because I started as a DM. I didn't start as a player. I was we bought a pack and we bought the starter kit, and I'm the bossy one of the group. So I was like, well, I'll DM then. And so she was the first character that I ever got to play. So nice. Yes, I totally understand. We're going to do an all cleric one shot, and I'm going to get you to come play because I think like we could do a whole campaign. Clerics are the best. Don't at me in chat. Unless you're green.
I will play Mother again because one thing that we're doing on that table, which is interesting, Will wants to kind of build out his world in sections. So he kind of had this urban campaign built for the characters that we are playing now, and we've kind of reached the end of that urban campaign. Sure. So we're switching, and we're still going to play. We're same players, same DM, right. Same situation. But we're going to switch to different characters and kind of pick up a different story.
I love
it. And that I am building a trickster cleric for the first time.
My husband.
Super excited about that.
My husband's playing a trickster cleric right now. And he is super excited about it. Like I would have never figured my husband would have picked a cleric ever. Not because he's like the super macho guy, but because he's a cleric in real life. Like he doesn't need to fantasize about that. But yeah, he loves, he loves, her name is Navivia. And he loves her so much. We started at the top, and I didn't follow up with it, so I'm going to follow up with it now.
No, you're fine.
Other fantasy. So like you are a voracious reader, and what other like movies, comic books, what other nerddoms other than games have been in your life?
So definitely movies. I love, Lord of the Rings, of course, and Game of Thrones was huge for me when it came on. I'm still disappointed in how it ended. But basically anything that has a good creative story. So it doesn't necessarily just have to be like fantasy related, but suspense, thrillers, anything that has a good mystery that I can sit, couch drive and sit and try to solve myself.
Yes.
I love stuff like that.
Have you seen Cannery Row? It's Orlando Bloom. It's on Amazon Prime, and it's like steampunky fairies.
What?
Holy!
No, I haven't.
I think there's already 2 seasons. Oh my gosh.
I'm looking it up right now.
Cannery Row. Cannery Row. I'm pretty certain. Carnival Row. Thank you, Maud. Maud is the best, Maud.
Okay.
Carnival Row.
I think I've heard of that, but I did not. First of all, I did not realize Orlando Bloom was in it. Second of all, I have apparently not gotten a good pitch for it.
Oh man, it is. Yes, and it is like he's like an undercover fairy. Nobody really knows his bloodline, and he's a police officer in the city, and like it's kind of like Gangs of New York, Irish immigrants, but if they were fairies, kind of a situation. It's fantastic.
Oh my goodness! So my husband and I are looking for a new show. So
you're done. That one, I will say, the Dragon Prince is animated, but it is one of the best examples. You've seen The Witcher.
I've seen parts of The Witcher. We haven't. Yeah, my husband, I think, has watched all the way through
Sure.
it, but I caught episodes.
The other one that's out there, because like I have a 12-year-old,
Mhm.
um, and so my mod says that it's Carnival Row is spicy fairies. So I don't know if you're on Book Talk, but like spicy fairies. It's true. There's a little bit of like Moulin Rouge companion Firefly situation happening there.
I am okay with all of this. That
Sure.
is fine.
I wish that it was Orlando Bloom. So there is it's a movie on Netflix and it's with Andy Serkis, which is why I started watching it, but it's called A Letter to the King, I think. He plays like it's about kids who go on this adventure and it is D&D
Oh,
for like
cool.
true teenagers. It's so good. So I would highly recommend that one as well.
Very cool.
And if you have Apple, it's not fantasy. It's like an alternate timeline. If
Mm,
Russia had gotten to the moon first, how would that have changed the US space program? And it's called For All Mankind. And
that's
oh,
cool.
it's so good. It's so good. We are huge space nerds here. So like it's
Very
really good.
cool.
So yes, lots. Me and my husband are just looking for another series too. So I hear you on that. Those kind of date nights, man, they're so important to have like
Oh,
that
yeah.
connection point. I'm with you. We're basically out of time. I told you this hour goes super fast. Uh, it does every week. I can't believe like I've done 8 of these now. This is crazy. Tell everybody again about where they can find more about the game shop and when you guys expect to open, how they can follow you, all of that.
Absolutely. So, Perception Games. The main way that you can interact with us right now is on Twitter. So we're at perception_GMS. Um, and I'm on there pretty much every day. So give us a shout out, give us a follow, come see the awesome stuff we're doing. We don't officially have an opening date yet, but because we're still in the process of renovating the building. But on Whip Wednesday, we typically will share some pictures of the renovations that we're doing, so you can watch our progress there as well. And we will definitely announce our opening date on Twitter once we officially have one. And then, I'm just excited to make new friends in the community and see you guys on Twitter. Definitely come see us.
Uh, Definitely everybody go give a follow really quick. Rachel, it's been so good to talk to you. I'm so excited. I'm gathering everybody. We're going to come and do, I've been joking that we should throw a Vancouver by night convention and we'll call it Van Conver. Um,
I love it.
and I'll just nominate your store that we'll have it at. So there we go.
I mean,
Steve,
I'm
you can
okay
get
with
to
this.
planning now. Steve and Joe are not going to be happy that I made a decision for their channel for something that is across the continent for them. You guys know I'm joking with you, but maybe I'm not. But I am. But
But
maybe I'm not.
seriously, welcome to visit anytime.
Yes, I'm so excited. I can't wait to see what you guys are doing. Thank you so much. We're gonna go raid somebody. I have to. Oh my gosh, I've got Steve plans it. Joe, yeah, Steve doesn't plan it. Joe plans all the things. Um, and yes, my raid button has queued out again. So we will probably raid. Who are we gonna raid? I am so frustrated with Streamlabs tonight. Rachel, we did finally get the mod thing working. Steve usually comes on here and tells me who to raid. I'm so used to him like giving me the stuff. I'm just gonna give it a second for chat to catch up, and then he'll come on and tell me who to raid here in a minute. Thank you so much. We're so excited. Please support your friendly local game stores. Thank you, Steve. We are gonna go raid Hops and Dragons, who are local to me, another kind of
Ooh,
small town group. So
okay.
go and enjoy that raid. Thank you again for being on with me. I can't wait to come see how things work out for you and to come visit
Awesome.
you. Thanks everybody for watching. We will see you guys next week with
Thanks,
Kaya.
guys.
Bye everybody.